All right, welcome back to the VR Raptor. Thank you for joining us after our break. We're going to continue on with the part one of the review of the Alphacool water block for the 3080/3090/3080 Ti. We talked about that in the previous video, how even though if you're shopping for one of these Alphacool blocks and it doesn't specifically mention the 3080 Ti, it is covered, it is compatible. We brought Shelby back with us again here, and he decided to change shirts in the middle of barber break. But moving on to our review, part one of this review, well, part two will be bringing you the benchmark tests and the actual performance and our wrap up of all the installation process, which we'll be shooting that as well. The actual installation process of this water block will be in between those two parts. First off, what do you think about the appearance of this water block? It's pretty nice. I like it. It's
I like it too.
Yeah, it seems very flashy. There was I believe it was for the GTX 10 series cards, like the 1070, 1080, 1060, whatnot. The water block from EK, which is probably the most expensive manufacturer of water blocks, top of the line basically, they had this whole portion here of the water block was covered by a metal plate. It wasn't even like a nickel plated that matched everything else. It was just like a steel plate, and I never understood why they had that there, because I thought, oh, it'd be so much nice to be able to see all the way through and see this underlying circuit board on the graphics card. And so I'm glad to see that Alphacool has not only a completely from edge to edge clear plexi water block, but they even have some of the portions that on EK are black. They're the
looks like it's got a shield over it.
Yeah, it's right. It's shielded. And then they have some trim, usually a trim piece right here that's black with their logo, and so it's nice to see it's totally clear, one big old plexi block. And the channels themselves are really interesting design too. Yeah, don't you agree?
I like them. They're very well cut. They have a good design to them.
You could see the pathway on the water comes in here. This is the inlet here. It's marked. They mark it easily with the little arrows.
Ins and out arrows.
Yeah, ins and outs. So the channel comes right in, or the water comes right in into the main channels over the graphics chip, and then disperses through the block, the cold plate there, around here, over the VRMs, over across to the other VRMs, and then back out of the water block. And it's just kind of like interesting how it all comes together in the circular pattern in the middle. I did kind of notice though here that the pathway for the water after it leaves the channels splits in two directions around in this circle, the perimeter, and one of them leads out into the continuation of the rest of the circuit, but the other one dead ends. And so I can really see there being not a lot of circulation over there and kind of having a hot spot. So that's what a first criticism right off, I would say.
I don't know. It looks like a hole right there.
Well, I believe what we have here is a double layer, so I believe there's you might be right, actually.
It does look like a hole down in there. Look, right there you can see half the tubing on this inside.
Okay, so maybe
it's not.
So this channel linking the two VRMs, I guess, isn't confined. I guess it is also circulating with the cold plate right here. But the problem with that is if the water can just circulate right into here, and water always follows the path of least resistance, then why would it go through all of this maze to cool the VRMs on this side? So it's likely what you're going to do is get the water come in, go right through here, and then most of this is just going to be sitting pretty still. That's one of those two things is going to be happening, but with this design I see probably a lot of standing water. You know, we're really like comparing all water blocks to EK water blocks because they're the most expensive and top of the line. And this is our first time dealing with the Alphacool water block. Like we mentioned in previous videos, we've had lots of their other products like reservoirs, radiators, pumps. But this is our first water block from them. And the bench test that we see online from other reviewers is that it has an equivalent cooling level.
Equivalent means it's up there with the top of the line.
So,
equivalent.
Right. And this comes in at roughly, if you add up all the shipping with the fact that, the shipping and the taxes, this came in about $70 cheaper, I believe, than the EK water block this time. This year, for some reason, the water blocks from EK were very expensive. So we decided we'd give the Alphacool a shot since there was considerable savings, and then we could let you know what we find with Alphacool water blocks.
I like their designing mind. There's angles and corners. And
the appearance is very nice, but it's ultimately, how does it perform? How does it cool? And like I was saying, the bench test showed equivalent with cooling the graphics chip. There might have been I guess a lesser cooling effect, a diminished cooling effect for the memory chips surrounding the graphics chip compared to EK. EK was more uniform across the graphics chip to the controller, the memory chips. But despite the fact that from other bench tests that the Alphacool water block wasn't cooling the memory chips as well, it was still performing just as well, even compared to like Corsair, which is a big name, not really known for water blocks, but they are a big name in cooling, and they were a distant third to EK and Alphacool, which they were pretty much tied with each other.
Number 3 is awesome. In my book.
Yeah, well, when you're paying a premium to water cool product to just squeeze out that extra bit of money, at a premium, you want to make sure that money is well spent,
That you get your bang for your buck.
Right.
Because you do want to overclock, get the best VR in you can get.
Going on, though, with the review and a little bit more about the appearance is I feel that the clarity isn't as great with this Alphacool water block as the EK water block, and that might be because the Alphacool water block is actually 2 layers of plexi, and the difference is actually in the design of how they channel the water. With the EK water blocks, they just mill the cold plate, the metal plate underneath that you see, the nickel-plated copper, and they mill that, and then they mill some channels in the plexiglass that goes on top of it, but not all the way through. And here, probably to save money on manufacturing costs, the middle layer of plexi, the channels are milled all the way through, and then you have a second layer of plexi sealed on top of that. So instead of having to have a nice machining job at the top of where your mill
where you go up
you're not leaving machining marks.
No sealing marks
there, because you could see here where they cut out the channel for the power connectors. You see, it's not.
Which camera are you shooting that at right there?
Well, yeah, either one's fine, but let me choose one, right? So here, where they milled out for the power connectors, you can see the machining marks in here and how the plexi's hazy from where it's not a polished finish, right? So I'm not sure of exactly the manufacturing process, but it could be that once they mill this, then they have to go back again with some kind of polisher of some sort and to get this clear plexi like the rest of it. And Alphacool has opted for, instead of going through that process, apparently just to put a second layer plexi on it. But the problem is you get the light passing through refracts twice as it passes through 2 different layers of plexi.
Because there's still that division. Yeah.
Right.
And so it does make a prism.
And so you get a little bit of a hazy, it's not a glass finish like you see with EK. So there's that, but
still pretty.
It's still pretty, you know. I mean, how much are you going to complain? These are comparisons. These are minute details that you can't tell.
Engineering people
unless you have it.
About it.
Yeah, unless you have it in your hand. These are things you can't tell. But you can't tell this by looking at a picture. So that's why, you know, we spent the money, we got the water block, and so we were sharing with you every minute detail that you might want or need to know. Moving on, I think some of the evidence towards how they do the milling on the plastic is apparent, and how they do the milling on the cold plate, because you can see some of the areas that don't make direct contact with the graphics chip or the memory chips. They're not as finely polished. So let's see if we can pick a spot. So right in here, beside, it's an area that does not make contact with anything. Right here where the cold plate makes contact with the graphics chip, it's ultra polished. You can see an extra level of polishing from machine marks. But over here, you can actually see the little circular, it's kind of like if you did a bad buffing job on your vehicle, you can see the machine marks.
The swirls.
Let's see if you can see that.
Yeah, sometimes the camera doesn't catch as much as we want it to sometimes.
But also, there's you can see some other places here on the top portion where there's some machining marks. But our particular water block, and I don't know what this, you know, this is anecdotal. This is just one water block, but ours arrived with what seems to be a tiny gouge. I would say it's more than a scratch. It's more like a screwdriver hit it or something like that. This is straight out of the box this way. We haven't installed it. We haven't done anything with it. It's straight out of the box this way. And it also appears to have a hair embedded under the surface of the nickel plating. Can you kind of
almost in line?
You
with
see
the
that?
Scratch too. It's like,
but it's not it's not a groove. It's not in. It's
beveled over.
Bump. Yeah, it's bevel, and so
like a hair got stuck in the metal while it was cooling or something.
Yeah, something like that. And see, EK, when they ship theirs, they have like a little sticker, a little non-adhesive, but like maybe static cling little label or something like that that goes over this ultra fine polished surface here that makes contact with the graphics chip. Right, because you know we put thermal paste in between the water block or if you're air cooling with the heat sink and fan, but that surface, whether it's a water block or it's a heat sink and fan, is ultra fine, ultra super smooth, polished smooth, like a mirror finish, like you see here. We add the thermal paste, that tiny amount. It's supposed to be a pea size. It's not supposed to be this layer. That's what some people think, this layer of thermal paste that goes in between. It's actually supposed to be a tiny amount that's spread super evenly of thermal paste, which fills in the tiny microscopic imperfections in the metal that you just can't do. Like, it's just...
even beyond our eyesight.
So, right. Yeah. And so it's to fill in those little tiny microscopic variations between the two metals so they have a better transfer of heat between the two. It's almost like trying to be one piece of metal. Like I said, it may not be any sort of indication of Alphacool's quality control. It's just one water block. It's anecdotal, so we can't speak to that.
Everything else is up to quality.
If you have had one of these Alphacool blocks, please feel free to leave a comment below and let us know your experience with your Alphacool water block. Doesn't matter what series it was. Doesn't matter whether it's NVIDIA or AMD or whoever.
Just another side of the coin looking at it.
Right, so maybe people can come here and maybe get more information by checking out the comments. Other people who've had experience with it, you may be able to help someone else out, in addition to help us with our YouTube algorithms.
Yeah, keep the community growing.
Right. Getting back to the point, the groove, this little scratch that we have in here, we wouldn't recommend using thermal paste in there, you could still end up with a hot spot on the graphics chip over that portion of the graphics chip.
Just cause a mountain in there.
Because you now have a thicker portion of thermal paste in that one area than the others. And even though it's a tiny little scratch, you're like, wow, are you really going to RMA over that? It's like, well...
If it arcs right to
when you
the
spend as much,
card,
when you're spending this kind of money on a computer and water, spending this kind of money water cooling it, I think it's $600,
That's enough to be
processor for there. This is a $1,430 graphics card. This is not only the top of the line. This came out 3080 Ti came out after the 3090, in some aspects is better than the 3090 minus the overkill of video memory. This is basically the top of the line, and you're going to go and spend another $200 to water cool on just the water block alone. You're not going to be accepting imperfections. Especially that could affect the performance.
Yeah, because that's right on the backside.
Right. If it was right anywhere else, we're talking about right over the heart of a $1,430 graphics card, and then that's where you're going to have your defect. And like, with all that, I'm sorry, but we got to RMA it. It's especially if we're going to be, we build this and then someone decides they would like to buy it. Don't forget to find our sister site over on Instagram at Aperture Computers. You can follow along there with this build and consequently buy the finished product. It'll be our flagship 2022 build for the year. Also, you can contact Aperture Computers to make your own custom design. We're kind of coming to the end of this right now. Overall, very excited. Looking forward to the installation. Looking forward to seeing the bench test. Unfortunate, we have a little bit of delay because we have to send this one back and then wait for the...
actually get some screwdriver time.
Yeah, so... yeah, we will be taking another break here and coming back with the installation and then the subsequent part 2 of the review when we bring you the bench tests and final performance. So, thank you once again. Say goodbye to everyone, Shelby.
Have a good day.
All right. Have a great rest of your week.
And enjoy the VR.